Okay, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a totally fascinating and, honestly, kind of baffling paradox surrounding the Portuguese national team. We're going to unpack exactly how massive media narratives get manufactured around super high-profile figures. And more importantly, how that obsession completely distorts our view of what is, at the end of the day, a collective team sport. So let's get right into it. Now, why are Portugal's players the luckiest on earth? I know that sounds like a totally crazy question right out of the gate, but stick with me here, because it actually exposes a massive, glaring blind spot in sports media. You see, this luck doesn't have anything to do with their actual skill or getting an easy tournament schedule. No, it comes entirely from where the media suddenly decides to point its cameras the second things go wrong. Which brings us to Section 1, the luckiest teammates. Moving right along to Section 2, the DR Congo case, we're going to use this specific match as our ultimate magnifying glass. So if we look at the actual nuts and bolts mechanics of that match, the team suffered from massive, frankly systemic failures across the entire board. The midfield completely struggled to gain any sort of control. The creativity you absolutely need to move the ball forward, it was just completely missing. And because of that, actual scoring chances were practically non-existent. We are talking about foundational breakdowns in how a football team actually operates out there on the pitch. And this perfectly illustrates the absolute mind-boggling disconnect between what actually happened on the grass for 90 minutes and what totally dominated the news cycle the very next morning. On one hand, you have the grim reality, a total structural collapse, no midfield, zero creativity, absolutely no chances. But on the other hand, look at the headlines. They were universally, literally, singularly focused on Cristiano Ronaldo. The tactical reality of the game was completely overwritten by this hyper-focused media narrative. And hey, this matters to us as fans. It shows exactly how sports media manufactures outrage just to farm engagement, actively shaping our reality of a game we all just watched with our own two eyes. So let's get into Section 3, analyzing the media obsession and exactly who is driving it. Literally the second the final whistle blows, this highly specific blame chorus instantly mobilizes. We're talking about an entire massive ecosystem here. Traditional pundits, those guys we can playfully call Zlatan analysts, who care way more about ego and personality than actual tactics. The TV commentators, and of course, the endless wave of social media experts. They all immediately, almost instinctively, hyper-focus on a 41-year-old striker. And in doing so, they entirely ignore the completely collapsed midfield and defense standing right behind him. Which honestly leads us to a pretty basic, highly logical question. How on earth can a striker score when his team creates almost nothing for 90 straight minutes? It's physically impossible, right? A forward just cannot succeed without some kind of operational support. You really have to stop and ask yourself, just based on the pure reality of the pitch, what are the midfielders actually doing? And where is the service to actually make a goal happen? And I think that brings us to this defining thought. Criticism is fair, but the obsession is not. It is absolutely fine, heck, it's totally expected to evaluate any player's performance. But zeroing in on one single individual to bear the entire burden for a collective team-wide failure, well, that crosses the line from valid sports critique into pure, unadulterated media obsession. All right, moving to Section 4, Anatomy of a Team. Let's talk collective effort. Let's just zoom out for a second to the absolute most basic definition of the sport. A team sport is a game where success or failure relies on the collective effort of all the players, right? Not just an individual. It's funny. People seem to completely understand this universally accepted definition, right up until the exact moment Cristiano Ronaldo is involved. Then, suddenly, poof, the definition completely vanishes, and systemic, collective flaws magically become his own personal fault. It's wild. Just think about the number 27. That is a massive number, and it represents the size of a standard national squad. That is 27 totally different players, each with their own specific tactical roles, who all share the operational responsibility of actually generating a win. That's 27 moving parts in a highly complex system. Yet, contrast that with the number one single player, just one guy who is forced to absorb literally 100% of the media's blame when that 27-player system completely fails. When you put it like that, it really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It just perfectly highlights the absolute absurdity of this disproportionate focus.
Now for our final piece, Section 5, Proving the Doubters Wrong, the Anatomy of a Resilient Legacy.
This intense, suffocating media pressure, it really isn't a new phenomenon for him. It's a cycle. If you look back over the decades, he has literally spent his entire career proving the doubters wrong. And even in recent years, despite that massive, proven history, he's still consistently written off by this exact same course of critics. But bringing us right up to the present day, he always finds a way to take that exact criticism, leverage it, and completely shock the world all over again. The cycle just endlessly repeats itself. Which really leaves us with one final, totally undeniable takeaway. Never underestimate him. Seriously. And it prompts an incredibly fascinating question that I want to leave you with today. If a single player possesses the immense gravitational pull to absorb all the blame for an entire nation's collective failure, what exactly happens when he inevitably decides to use all that pressure to shock the world once again? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this breakdown gave you a much clearer lens to view these massive media narratives going forward.